The bonus. The guy at the desk next to me was about to have a coronary. $250,000? I looked down at my own check. One word, one number staring back at me like a cruel joke. 0. I didn't scream. I didn't rage. I simply closed my drawer, packed my things, and walked out. At home, I locked the door, tossed my phone into the deepest drawer, and let the world fade away. Sleep took me immediately, deep and untroubled. The next morning, my peace was shattered. My phone rang, vibrated and beeped like it wanted to kill me. 129 missed calls, 289 unread messages pinned at the top, a message from HR. The entire company is looking for you. The number that had everyone else in the office losing their minds was $250,000. Greg Peterson held his check above his head like it was a championship trophy. His grin was wide, triumphant, almost painful to watch. Around him, colleagues crowded in a swarm of praise and envy. "Greg, you're killing it. That's a Porsche." "No doubt. Tonight's drink's all you, buddy." I watched from my corner, a solitary island in a sea of celebration. The air around me felt impossibly cold, as if the office had forgotten I existed. I held my own check, identical in paper and format, except for one minor detail. The number 0. Next to it, a single word. None. I had led Project Horizon, the initiative projected to bring the company 9-figure profits over the next 3 years, and this was my reward. Nothing. Eyes drifted toward me, curious and cruel. They expected drama, tears, screams, a desk-flinging tantrum. I gave them nothing. No reaction. Not a twitch, not a whisper. I folded the check neatly, tucked it deep into my bag, and walked toward the break room. My heels clicked steadily against the polished floor, deliberate. Unbroken. Through the door, I caught fragments of conversation. "Chloe, my only ally here," voice low and trembling. "It's absurd. Everyone knows Project Horizon was the biggest win this year. And Greg? He's an idiot getting 250. Where's the justice?" Marcus's voice followed, hushed but sharp. "Keep it down. You want to get fired?" Ava must have pissed him off. I poured a glass of water, met Chloe's gaze. Red-rimmed, swollen eyes. She looked away, ashamed, like she'd been caught. I rested a hand on her shoulder. A faint, ghostly smile crossed my lips, cold and unreadable. "Don't worry. I know this is only the beginning." Back at my desk, I began packing. Every movement was precise, almost ritualistic. Files, archived data, encrypted personal items placed carefully into a box. The office was silent, the only sound the soft shuffle of paper. Greg wandered over, a fake concern plastered on his face. "Tough break, Ava," he said, voice tight with feigned sympathy. "Market's rough. Someone had to take it. Don't take it personally. Work harder next year." I looked at him. My eyes were ice, still unreadable. Absolute. No anger, no sorrow. Just cold. He flinched. The smile slipped, cracked, and vanished. He muttered something, shuffled away. I shut down my computer, packed the last of my things, and carried the box out. I was the last to leave the floor. I felt dozens of eyes on me, heard whispers rising in the silence behind me. I didn't look back. I was leaving this office behind and stepping straight into a storm. But first, sleep. I didn't bother turning on the lights when I got home. The apartment was a mosaic of faint city glow and deep shadows, so still I could hear the quiet hum of my own breathing. The cardboard box, my neatly packed career, sat by the door like an unwanted guest. I reached for my phone, hesitated only for a second, then opened the lowest drawer of my desk. The old hinges groaned in protest. I tossed the phone inside and closed it with a sharp click, shutting out the entire noisy, toxic world behind it. The shower hissed to life, steam quickly fogging the mirror until my reflection blurred into something unrecognizable. The heat bit into my skin, purging the grime of the day, the residue of betrayal, the humiliation that still clung like smoke. I let it all slide down the drain. Emotions, I reminded myself, were a luxury in the game of survival. They had no currency. When the water finally cooled, I wrapped myself in a towel and went to the kitchen. Dinner was nothing more than a bowl of noodle soup, simple, unembellished, practical. I ate in the dark, each bite grounding me back in the present. By the time I finished, the fog in my mind had cleared completely. What remained was cold, sharp, deliberate thought. That $0 bonus hadn't been an error. It was a message handwritten in corporate venom. Marcus Cole, the man who smiled like a friend but bit like a viper, had drawn first blood. It was a strategic move, a test of control, and the motive was clear. Project Horizon. My creation, my victory, my downfall. Horizon had been my masterpiece, a system with barriers so complex it had secured the company's future for years. Its market potential was limitless, and because of that, someone had decided they wanted it for themselves. Marcus, for all his charm and expensive suits, was a parasite living off nepotism and closed-door deals. He didn't understand my work, but he understood greed. And Greg Peterson, the man of the hour with his $250,000 grin, was nothing but bait. A distraction to draw my fury. They wanted me to explode, to lose composure, to give them the excuse they needed to kick me out. With cause. And even if I didn't, they'd already branded me as worthless. Disposable. It was a clever plan. Cruel, but clever. Only they'd made one fatal mistake. They thought I'd fight with noise. But I've never believed in shouting. Only in precision. Results are my weapon. Silence. My shield. Before bed, I stood at the window, looking out at the endless grid of city lights below. Each one belonged to someone hustling, surviving, clawing their way through the same unforgiving machine. But I wasn't one of them anymore. I wasn't surviving. I was calculating. I wasn't the storm's victim. I was the storm. When I finally slid into bed, sleep came instantly. Deep. Empty. Mechanical. Somewhere inside that darkness, data and memories reorganized themselves. Faces, codes, files, patterns. Everything I needed for what was coming. By morning, sunlight slipped through the curtains and painted a single bright line across my face. My eyes opened. Calm, focused. I stretched, feeling strength rise like a current through my veins. The stillness before a strike. The calm before a war I already knew I'd win. I walked to the desk, pulled open the drawer, and picked up my phone. As the screen lit up, I smiled. The game was on. The screen flickered to life, and with it, the world crashed back in. BZZZ. The vibration rattled across the desk, a shrill reminder of everything I'd tried to silence. Notifications multiplied in red streaks, crawling upward until they formed an almost absurd total. 129 missed calls, 289 unread messages. I narrowed my eyes, unlocked the screen, and braced myself for the noise. At the top sat a message from the head of our, a woman whose words usually came wrapped in polished corporate nonsense. Ava, call me immediately. The entire company is looking for you. The entire company. A slow smile curved my lips. Yesterday I'd been invisible. Disposable, a non-entity worth exactly $0. Overnight, I'd become the center of their panic. How efficient. I scrolled through the flood of messages. A third were from Chloe. Ava, please answer me. Don't do anything rash. That place isn't worth it. Something's wrong. It's Project Horizon. Call me now. Her worry grew with every message, spiraling from concern to outright fear. Then came Greg Peterson's texts, a fascinating descent. Hey, don't take the bonus thing personally. Marcus wants you back in the office. Urgent. Where the hell are you? Get back here now. His tone shifted from patronizing to panic to furious. Clearly my disappearance had thrown a wrench in their script. But the most revealing were the ones from Marcus Cole himself. Over 20 missed calls, each message crafted with surgical precision. Ava, I know you're upset. This isn't the time for drama. Return to the office immediately. That's an order. If you don't comply, there will be consequences. Threats. Guilt. Control. His trademarks. He was trying to reel me back in before the crack showed. Unfortunately for him, I'd already stepped off his board. I rose from my chair and ignored the phone. Instead, I moved through my morning with ritual calm. A shower, a skincare routine, a hydrating mask. Small acts of defiance disguised as self-care. Then I opened a closet. Today wasn't about survival. It was about strategy. I selected a fitted black suit, silk blouse, and 4-inch heels. Sharp, clean. Untouchable. Not the look of a woman defeated. The look of a queen reclaiming her throne. Coffee brewed in the kitchen, dark and unsweetened. The first sip was bitter clarity. I opened my laptop, linked into my private network, and started scanning Omnicorp's internal servers. Every second I stayed silent, their anxiety would multiply. Their narrative would unravel. They thought I was the prey. But the moment I switched off my phone last night, the hunt had changed hands. I, Ava Mitchell, was no longer running. I was hunting. Halfway through my coffee, I called Chloe. She picked up on the first ring. Ava, thank God. You scared me half to death. I thought I'm fine, I cut in, my voice even detached. Tell me what's happening. Just the facts. The calm steadied her. She drew a shaky breath. It's Horizon. The core code. It's gone. My heartbeat didn't change, but my pulse sharpened. There it was, she continued, voice trembling. Right after the bonus meeting, the system flagged a remote breach. Someone cloned the entire source code and wiped every backup. The security team says it was done with custom malware. Everything's gone, Ava. She choked out the rest. The company's in chaos. Stocks are tanking. And Marcus? He told everyone you did it. Said you hacked the servers for revenge. He's already called the police. A low, humorless laugh slipped from my throat. Elegant, brutal. Predictable. He'd given me the perfect motive. Public humiliation, then stolen my work and framed me with surgical precision. This wasn't about firing me. It was about erasing me. Don't panic, I told her softly. Just answer my questions. Time of breach, 10 o'clock last night, she said. Security says it was a professional job clean. Almost no trace. The board's furious. Mr. Sterling even flew back from Europe. Arthur Sterling? One of Omnicorp's founders. A man with principles that was unexpected and possibly useful. Chloe hesitated, then added, and Greg? He was still at his desk when I left. Looked weird. This morning. He looks even worse. I see, I murmured. Then I hung up and got to work. Fingers flying, I tunneled into the company's backend through a private security system I'd built years ago. A backdoor no one else knew existed. The logs there were far more complete than what it could see. And there it was. Entries buried and partially deleted. I reconstructed the fragments line by line until a pattern emerged. A foreign IP had accessed the Horizon server at 10:07 p.m. but the signature wasn't external. It belonged to an internal port used for vendor data transfers. Only 5 people had credentials for it. Marcus Cole was one of them. The final piece slid neatly into place. This wasn't an outside attack. It was an inside operation, a theft disguised as sabotage. And I was the perfect scapegoat. I closed my laptop, catching my reflection in the black screen. Calm eyes, perfect hair. Composed face. The calm before detonation. It was time to meet my executioners. The moment I walked through the glass doors of Omnicorp, silence spread like wildfire. The receptionist froze mid-greeting, her mouth hanging open. The security guard instinctively straightened his spine. Employees scurrying through the lobby stopped mid-step, eyes darting toward me, their expressions a cocktail of shock, curiosity, and the thrill of incoming scandal. I didn't acknowledge any of them. My 4-inch heels echoed against the marble floor, a crisp, deliberate rhythm that filled the room. I made my way toward the executive elevators. The door slid open, revealing the head of our, flanked by 2 guards, her expression tight with disapproval. Ava, you finally decided to grace us with your presence, she said, her tone clipped and cold. Before she could say more, another voice, deeper and full of fury, rang out behind me. Ava. Marcus Cole was striding toward me, thunder written all over his face. Behind him trailed the head of it and several senior managers, all grim and watchful. He stopped inches from me, his anger radiating like heat. Where the hell were you last night? Why was your phone off? And what happened to the Horizon code? His voice boomed across the lobby. You owe everyone here an explanation. He stood too close, like a prosecutor ready to deliver judgment. I took a small step back and met his glare without flinching. An explanation, I said coolly. Funny, Marcus. I was just about to ask you for the same thing. That calm only made him angrier enough, he barked. Conference room now. Mr. Sterling and the police are waiting. The conference room felt like a courtroom. At one end of the long table sat Arthur Sterling, exhausted from his overnight flight. Beside him were 2 plainclothes detectives. The company's lawyers, senior tech leads, and a few board members filled the rest of the seats. I sat alone at the far end, isolated and exposed. Greg was slumped in a corner, eyes fixed on the table. Chloe stood near the door, eyes red and swollen. The HR director's warning glance kept her frozen in place. Marcus opened the meeting with theatrical confidence, dropping a thick folder labeled evidence onto the table. Ava Mitchell, he began, his tone dripping with accusation. You went off the grid last night, right after your bonus dispute. During that same window, our most valuable project, Horizon, was stolen. As its lead developer, you had unrestricted access. The pattern speaks for itself. He even held up a copy of my bonus check like it was a smoking gun. This wasn't punishment, he continued. Risk management flagged you as a possible security concern weeks ago. We just didn't realize you'd prove them right. His words twisted truth into a weapon. A murmur rippled through the room, and the suspicion in their eyes turned to judgment. I looked around slowly, reading every face. Then I laughed, a quiet, sharp sound that broke the suffocating tension. Marcus, I said softly. That's quite a story. Too bad it falls apart under scrutiny. I opened my laptop, slid in a flash drive, and brought up a series of code logs on the screen. These, I said evenly, are the access records from the deep memory of our servers. The ones your team tried so hard to wipe at once. The room leaned in. At 10:07 p.m. last night, someone logged into the Horizon server and copied the entire data package. The access came from an internal port, not an external breach. I turned the screen toward him. And that internal port? It's one reserved for you, Marcus. The one with full administrative clearance. Gasps broke the silence. I switched to another tab displaying the project's internal alert log. Project Horizon runs on a triple-layer security system. Any unauthorized access sends an encrypted alert directly to my phone. I didn't get a single notification until after the bonus fiasco. Odd, don't you think? I looked him dead in the eye. Did you cut me out of the alert loop before the breach? Or were you too busy deleting evidence to cover your tracks? The color drained from his face, his earlier fury dissolving into dread. The room was silent again, but this time the suspicion had shifted. The executives weren't looking at me anymore. They were all looking at Marcus. The interrogation had officially flipped. Marcus slammed his palm on the table hard enough to rattle the pens. That's ridiculous. You're twisting things. You don't have a shred of proof. Before I could reply, a deep, authoritative voice interrupted. Let her speak. Arthur Sterling's calm command cut through the noise. He hadn't spoken until now, but his eyes never left me. I could see the calculation in his gaze. He sensed something wasn't adding up. I gave a brief nod before continuing. You're right about one thing. The Horizon code was stolen, I said evenly. But what was taken was only an empty shell. A murmur swept through the room. I opened another encrypted folder on my laptop, unlocking it with a long password and fingerprint scan. The interface loaded with soft blue light. This is a hidden failsafe I built into Horizon. I call it the Shadow System. Gasps broke the silence. Even the head of it looked stunned. Before launch, I quietly transferred all the critical algorithms and data into this parallel system. What they stole last night looks flawless on the surface, but it's hollow. The moment it runs, it's programmed to collapse within 72 hours, corrupting any system it touches. I met every pair of eyes in the room, my tone calm and steady. With this system, I can not only track where the stolen data ends up, but also recover the backups that were supposedly wiped. Then my focus sharpened, zeroing in on Marcus. My $0 bonus wasn't a coincidence or a precaution. It was the payoff to push me aside so you and your partners could execute the theft and make me your scapegoat. Clever, really. Eliminate the obstacle, cash in the reward, and make sure no one suspects a thing. Closing the laptop with a soft click, I leaned back. I can fix this. But on my terms. I listed them clearly. First, I want unrestricted clearance. Every department reports to me during this investigation. Second, no interference until I recover the data and clear my name. Third, protection. I want my safety guaranteed. Marcus looked like he might explode. You're insane. You're a suspect and you're demanding a promotion. I didn't blink. No, Marcus. I'm the only one who can stop this from destroying Omnicorp. I turned toward Arthur Sterling. Give me 3 days. If I fail to recover Horizon or prove who's responsible, I'll accept full responsibility. For a long moment, the room held its breath. Finally, Mr. Sterling nodded once. Agreed. As of now, Ava Mitchell will lead the internal recovery team. She has full access to company resources. He turned to the detectives. Gentlemen, I think it's time to broaden your scope. This isn't as simple as it seemed. The senior detective inclined his head, his tone now respectful. Understood, Mr. Sterling. In less than 10 minutes, I'd gone from suspect to the company's last hope. As I gathered my things, I caught sight of Greg in the corner. He was trembling, his face ghostly pale. On his wrist gleamed a brand new Patek Philippe watch, the same model I'd seen Marcus admiring in a catalog just last week. The puzzle finally clicked into place. I connected my laptop to the main screen and ran a demonstration. A faint trail of data appeared, an unfinished line of code, a blurred IP address, scattered timestamps. You see, I said quietly, no matter how carefully they hide, the trail always leads somewhere. The room stayed silent. The first battle was over, and I had won. With my new authority, my first move was to lock the entire building down. All computers, phones, and access cards were confiscated for forensic review. I gathered Chloe and a handful of junior engineers I trusted and converted the main server room into our command center. Using the Shadow System's hidden channel, we began tracing the stolen data's path through cyberspace. It was like following a grain of sand through a storm. Slow, meticulous, and draining. After hours of silence and glowing monitors, Chloe finally spoke. Ava, When did you even create the shadow system? I never saw anything like this in the archives my third year here, I replied without looking away from the screen. Rule number 1, Chloe. Never bet your safety on someone else's integrity. 12 hours later, we had our first lead. The data had ended up on a remote server overseas, registered under a fake company. But the ownership trail led to Apex Dynamics, Omnicorp's fiercest competitor. At the same time, the IT sweep revealed suspicious login activity from Greg Peterson's workstation and phone. Every timestamp lined up perfectly with the timeline of the theft. Then Chloe leaned in close, whispering. One of the janitors mentioned Greg's been throwing money around. New Porsche, expensive dinners. She even saw him give Marcus a luxury watch a few days ago. The Patek. The entire picture came together in my mind. Marcus Cole had been collaborating with Apex Dynamics, selling Horizon for a fortune. Greg, naive and greedy, had played his part as the inside man, paid off and promised a promotion he'd never get. My $0 bonus was the opening move to push me out the frame-up, the closing act. But I wasn't about to expose them. Not yet. If I moved too soon, Marcus would let Greg take the fall and slip away clean. I didn't want them caught. I wanted them destroyed. That evening Mr. Sterling called me to his office. Exhaustion in his eyes mirrored my own. Ava, he said quietly. Tell me everything. I did. I laid it all out. What I'd uncovered, what I suspected, and how deep this betrayal ran. He sat back, exhaling slowly. A sickness in my own company. Horizon isn't just a project. It's tied to power, politics, and too many egos. Marcus, isn't the disease just one of its symptoms? You've stirred something dangerous. I know, I said. That's why I need your backing. I plan to turn this around to make Marcus lead me straight to the others behind him. I explained my strategy. Bold and risky. When I finished, Mr. Sterling regarded me with quiet admiration. Do it, he said finally. You have my full support. The next day, I began spreading controlled rumors through the office. The story was simple. The shadow system had restored most of Horizon's core algorithms, and the project would be back online within 48 hours. The bait was set. It didn't take long for Marcus and Greg to react. Security footage caught the meeting late at night. Voices raised, movements tense, Greg snapped at his subordinates. Marcus looked pale, restless. They were scared and desperate. I knew it wouldn't be long before they made their next move. And when they did, I'd be waiting. The trap was simple. I announced that I was sealing the back door. The IT department began a company-wide system maintenance exercise framed as a routine procedure to permanently close the shadow system backdoor I had used officially. It was to remove any lingering vulnerabilities. The news reached Marcus exactly as intended. To him, it was logical crisis over, tech lead relinquishing emergency privileges. Closing a backdoor she created was routine procedure, but it was also their last opportunity. They had to act before the system was sealed. Their plan was infiltrate the server, deploy a virus to erase every trace of the shadow system, and transmit the real Horizon code to Apex. The scheduled night for their operation, Friday. The office tower was mostly dark, save for a few IT lights where my team pretended to work overtime. I was stationed in a separate monitoring room with Mr. Sterling, the lead detective, and a handful of internal auditors. 16 silent video feeds displayed every critical hallway and entrance. At midnight, a shadow appeared in the hallway leading to the core server room. Greg. He swiped a cloned keycard and entered, oblivious to the pinhole camera capturing every step, and even more oblivious that he wasn't entering the digital heart of Omnicorp. He was stepping into a virtual honeypot I had designed specifically for him. Confidently, he approached the terminal and inserted a USB drive to deploy his virus. The progress bar froze. A warning flashed across the screen. Unauthorized access detected. All user activity is recorded and uploaded to secure cloud backup. Greg's face went pale. He pounded on the keyboard, desperate to regain control. But the system was unyielding. Meanwhile, the shadow system silently captured everything. His attempted virus deployment, the Apex IP connection, and the transfer of the corrupted data I had prepared. At that moment, Chloe happened to walk past the server room, gasping at the sight of Greg's panic. It was perfectly timed theater. Greg's composure collapsed. He grabbed his phone and dialed frantically. Marcus. Marcus, it's over. She knows everything. It's a setup. Marcus's voice hissed through the line. Destroy it. Smash the hard drive. Just as Greg raised a fire extinguisher to the server rack, the doors burst open. Police. Don't move. Officers and auditors swarmed, pinning him to the ground. His phone continued to display his call with Marcus, a damning record of the conspiracy. I sipped my coffee in the monitoring room, calm and deliberate, feeling the first rush of victory. Mr. Sterling looked at me with a mixture of awe, disbelief and relief. Somewhere in his mind, he must have realized just how fortunate he was to have me on his side. Meanwhile, in his mansion, Marcus Cole heard the commotion over the phone. The realization hit him like a thunderbolt. It was over. Greg didn't last long. Under questioning, less than an hour before he confessed everything, he revealed Marcus's manipulation, the $250,000 bonus, the empty promises of a VP promotion, the meticulous orchestration, the code theft, and my frame-up, an illicit Apex Dynamics deal that funneled millions offshore. The truth was finally out. When the authorities arrived at Marcus's estate, he still wore that arrogant, untouchable smirk. It banished the moment cold steel encircled his wrists. For the first time, he understood that connections, schemes and power could not shield him. Omnicorp moved quickly. Marcus was terminated immediately for cause, and his case was handed over to law enforcement. Greg Peterson was also fired and now cooperated fully with the investigation. The $250,000 bonus was clawed back. On Monday, Mr. Sterling addressed the entire company. The auditorium was hushed as he spoke. On behalf of the board, I offer a formal apology. It is shameful that such corruption festered within these walls. But I also extend my deepest gratitude to one employee in particular. His eyes found me in the crowd. Ava Mitchell. Every head turned. That $0 bonus was a failure, a disgrace. Today it is redefined. It will stand as the highest honor this company can bestow. An employee's true value cannot be measured in dollars or cents. Ava's intelligence, loyalty and courage saved Omnicorp from catastrophic loss. She secured our future. A wave of applause erupted. Those who had watched me with scorn now looked with awe and respect. Mr. Sterling continued, the board has unanimously created a new C-level role. Chief Strategy Officer, responsible for all core technology, strategic development and security. This position will be held by Ava Mitchell. Additionally, she will receive $50 million in company stock options, effective immediately. The room gasped. $50 million. 200 times Greg's bonus. A sum Marcus Cole could never have dreamed of. Chloe ran to me, tears streaming, and hugged me tight. You did it, Ava. You really did it. I returned her embrace, feeling the weight of every insult, every slight, every calculated humiliation dissolve in that moment. I walked to the stage, accepted the formal appointment, and faced the company. A calm, confident smile crossed my face. Not of arrogance, but of certainty. This was never just revenge. It was justice reclaimed. Everything taken from me was mine again. And then some. On my first day as Chief Strategy Officer, I ignited 3 fronts. The first targeted our technology. I led a full-scale overhaul of Omnicorp's infrastructure, patching hundreds of vulnerabilities left by Marcus Cole's mismanagement. I implemented a proactive defense network inspired by the Shadow system, elevating our security to a level unmatched in the industry. Our fortress was now impenetrable. The second fire targeted our people. Chloe, the one who had stood by me through it all, was promoted multiple levels to become my chief of staff. She didn't just deserve recognition, she deserved mentorship, training to become a leader. I wanted everyone in the company to understand that loyalty and integrity were more valuable than gold. The third fire targeted our enemies. I authorized Omnicorp to launch a lawsuit and hostile takeover against Apex Dynamics, whose stock had plummeted after the espionage scandal. They were defenseless. 2 months later, I sat across from their executives at the negotiation table. Fear radiated from them as I signed the acquisition papers. From that moment on, they would only look up when they looked at me. Under my direction, Omnicorp's market value doubled. Project Horizon relaunched 6 months early, exceeding every projection and setting new industry benchmarks. Media outlets chronicled my rise from zero to so. One headline proclaimed, "The woman who saved $1 billion company," read another. I became a symbol of professional excellence. I used my authority to restructure compensation across the company, establishing a transparent merit-based system. My promise was simple. At Omnicorp, effort would be rewarded $0. Bonuses would be history. Late at night, in my corner office atop the Omnicorp Tower, I would stand over the city's glittering lights, coffee in hand, feeling a quiet, unshakable strength. I no longer needed validation. This city, this industry, this future. It was mine to shape. 1 year later, at the annual bonus announcement, my name topped the list, followed by a number so vast it stunned everyone. Mr. Sterling sent a handwritten note calling me the soul and savior of the company. I delivered the keynote at the Global Tech Summit in Davos. The audience, packed with the most influential industry leaders, hung on every word. A year ago, they hadn't noticed me. Now they listened intently. My personal wealth had grown exponentially. I purchased a villa overlooking the ocean, a private yacht, and artworks I had once only dreamed of. Freedom and influence were absolute. Marcus Cole and Greg Peterson were sentenced to 15 and 7 years in federal prison for corporate espionage, while wire fraud and a host of related crimes. Their story became a case study in business ethics. Under my guidance, Chloe became director of innovation, leading a team that drove the company's creative engine. I declined lucrative offers from rival firms. Omnicorp was my battlefield, and I was its ruler. Instead, I invested in a foundation to mentor and fund talented young tech professionals who lacked opportunities, ensuring no brilliant mind would face the darkness I had endured. Sometimes I thought back to that night. The night of the zero. It was no longer a wound, it was a jewel on my crown. The chrysalis I had broken out of. It was the first step on the staircase to my throne. From my office high above the city, I looked down on the empire I had helped shape. The peace and power I felt were beyond money or status. I was no longer just a success story. I had become a legend. One bright weekend afternoon, I found myself driving past a familiar corner. The little coffee shop near my old office. A year ago, I had sat inside that same cafe alone with an iced Americano, quietly crafting the blueprint of my revenge after the humiliation of the $0 bonus. On a whim, I parked and stepped inside. By the window sat a few of my former colleagues. They were chatting about company news, and when my name came up, their voices lowered, touched with awe, the kind reserved for distant legends. "Did you hear? Ms. Mitchell just completed the acquisition of that AI startup in Silicon Valley. She's unstoppable. It's like she's not even human." I didn't interrupt them. Instead, I found a quiet corner and ordered what I always, a black Americano. No sugar. My phone buzzed. It was the company's latest quarterly report. Record-breaking numbers yet again. A message from Chloe popped up next, along with a photo of her and her team all smiling. "Ava, we landed the European contract. Thank you for everything." I smiled faintly, sent back a thumbs-up emoji, and muted my phone. The hum of the cafe faded into a pleasant hush. My thoughts drifted back to that fateful day, the careful way I packed my desk, the silent drive home. The deep, dreamless sleep that followed. To everyone else, that $0 bonus had been the end of my story. A public execution. But I had always known better. It wasn't an ending. It was the perfect disguise. The bait that drew out every hidden enemy. My silence. My restraint. My calm. All of it had been deliberate. Every move had led to one final outcome. Checkmate. My fingers tapped lightly against the rim of the cup as I gazed out the window. In the distance, a skyscraper was rising against the skyline, its steel frame catching the sunlight. It was the new Omnicorp campus, a project I had personally designed, soon to become the city's next landmark. That building would be my next battlefield. My next empire. I took a slow breath. The air smelled of roasted coffee and sun-warmed pavement. It smelled like victory. The zero hadn't been my downfall. It had been the beginning of my legend.